Hello, we hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another esports news episode. We hope you guys all enjoy, and obviously despite this past week, and if you guys have heard, a couple of stories we're probably not going to touch on in too many details. If you guys did hear about the shooting not only in Jacksonville as well as the whole McSkillet event, just some disappointing news and saddening news to hear over here on the esports news channel. And in the future, we hope to have some sort of outlet to talk about these things. I'm sure many of you guys already know the details about what happened in Jacksonville. During a Madden event, there was actually a shooting involving one of the players at the event itself, involving actually, as of right now, 2 deaths, and alongside that at least 11 injuries. So going forward, again, we're going to try and hopefully cover these things in the future, have some sort of outlet to discuss these kind of topics. Obviously a very sad weekend, and our prayers go out to all the families of those involved in both incidents. So anyways, we hope you guys all enjoyed today's episode of Esports News, and let's get into it. And first off, in very big CSGO news out there, guys, we actually have confirmation now that Virtus.pro Bialy will actually be leaving that roster sometime after the Face It Major, if not right after the Face It Major. And why I say huge news, if you guys knew to actually remember back in 2016, it was this team who had signed at that time in 2016. It's now been confirmed that MIBR, their current team, apparently signed longer and larger contracts. But at the time in 2016, it was actually that former Virtus.pro roster with Taz and Snacks, and of course Bialy, Neo, and Pasha being a part of that roster, who had signed the largest and longest contract in CSGO history at that time. And it's going to be now confirmed as well, within just 2 years of that signing, they're now going to be, with Bialy going out of the roster as well as Snacks and Taz already leaving, they will have lost over half of that original roster. So if you guys would have told me that a couple of years ago, they then signed the largest and longest contract in CSGO history and over half the team would change within 2 years, I would have called you absolutely crazy. It's been confirmed as well. Alongside that, Snatchy knew about the move when he joined the team in place of Morels. So Virtus.pro going forward, guys, apparently alongside that, an early departure from Zotac Cup, a tournament they had a really good chance to actually place in as well, and they actually had their coach come out at HLTV. He said, of course, it's very hard to play when you know you're going to change your roster, which I imagine it can be, but it's an amazing thing to see as well. Virtus.pro changing over half their roster within 2 years of such a huge announcement is definitely breaking news. And alongside that, of course, in the intro, we talked about the shooting in Jacksonville, and again, I wish I could go into more details with all of you guys, and just one more time, our prayers do go out to everyone involved in the incident itself. Unfortunately enough, it was actually ESL, their Counter-Strike account, which apparently responded to ESL's original post about the event itself, of course, expressing their condolences. It was the ESL CS account who apparently replied with this, which is a kill sound effect, and apparently, as of right now, ESL is going with the story that their account was actually hijacked. It was, of course, not them who made that tweet. The tweet was deleted very shortly afterwards, but, of course, the Reddit community, the entire community had screenshots of this. Overall, I think we've had these issues before with some social media accounts going a bit rogue and saying some things that are a bit too brash, and I'm not really sure which side I'm on. Of course, there's a lot of allegations right now if the account was actually hijacked or if it was actually ESL trying to be funny. ESL has made several statements right now saying the account's been hijacked, and that does not represent the company whatsoever. And I'm sure that if there actually was someone involved, an employee there who actually tweeted that out as a funny joke, they will be fired, and maybe we'll never hear about that. So anyway, bouncing off, of course, into some other CSGO news, we actually had Zotac Cup finish up this past weekend. MIBR looking very good, although not to say there's been really top tier competition here besides some teams who did go out early. Optic Gaming, Virtus.pro, they all went out pretty early, but I do want to say MIBR looked pretty dominant throughout the entire playoffs, not dropping a single map. They actually 2-0 Flash Gaming in some pretty dominant games, 16-1 and 16-3. They 2-0 MVP PK, and in the finals, in a best of 5, they 3-0 Kingwin alongside Taz. So MIBR looking very, very solid, and I wish I could say the same for Cloud9. At the same point this last weekend, we actually had IEM Chicago qualifiers. It's going to be probably one of the best events we see throughout that year because it's going to be some crazy talent there, and unfortunately enough, I wish I could say the same for MIBR that I do for Cloud9. It does seem that new roster is definitely struggling. They suffer a loss to E United in a best of 5, which, again, if you go historically speaking, you tell me that Cloud9, former major champions, is going to lose to E United in a best of 5 matchup. I call you crazy, but unfortunately enough for IEM Chicago qualifiers, a couple upsets here and there, and again, E United definitely a solidified roster who had a chance to make some runs at the American Minor alongside NRG. Obviously, both those teams fell short, but definitely a team to look out for in the future as they've had a pretty solid last few months, but unfortunately enough, you just can't really compromise. You can't really say how they possibly beat Cloud9 in a best of 5, besides, of course, Cloud9 having almost half a new roster, alongside that trying to deal with a new IGL. If you had high hopes for the major, though, this does not look good. Now, also bouncing off that, lastly for the major, guys, it does seem as well that Woxic, apparently a part of course, Team HR, one of their better members, he's having some visa issues this morning. He did actually tweet out just shortly before this video was recorded that he's having some visa issues. He does have a visa going to England, but he's not really sure if it's going to conflict with some other issues as well. So as of right now, HR definitely need him to be there for the major challenge stage that does start next Wednesday, and we'll have some more updates on that. And also, very lastly, following last week's stories about Navi Flamey, he will be at DreamHack Stockholm. So there actually were reports by now, and it has been confirmed that apparently the team was possibly not going to play with him. He will be there for DreamHack Stockholm, the last big event that team has before the Face It Major. And very lastly, of course, talking about the major guys, we have no stickers yet, no big updates. We can confirm though from inside sources that apparently this Wednesday, of course, the major challenge stage does start next Wednesday, so this is the closest we've ever been to a major without stickers or anything like the challenge or the pick'ems actually being released so far. I can confirm from inside sources, guys, we will be getting stickers hopefully soon, and alongside that, something else special will be coming for CSGO. And an obvious Dota 2 news, guy, I'm going to be speechless about this. If you guys did watch TI8 this last weekend, I don't think many people out there could have placed bet on it, as well as just even predict this happening, guys. OG, one of the most immaculate TI runs we have possibly ever seen. So, of course, going to briefly overview that. Alongside that as well, they did come away with just over $11 million in prize pool money, and the prize pool did jump to just over $25.5 million. Yet again, the largest esports prize pool of all time. And if you guys have checked the largest esports prize pools, they pretty much have all been TIs for notable reasons. I think the top 5 or 6 have all been TI prize pools, but still, yet again, breaking their own record at just over $25.5 million being spread across those teams. And also, of course, in big news, OG's immaculate run, especially with the storyline between No Tail and him kind of pulling this team together. Alongside that, their win over EG, and of course, the background between No Tail and Fly and that story. It just all comes together. And again, you look at a team who barely made the upper bracket, just barely. And in that first matchup, again, they take down VGJ Storm, the #1 team out of Group A. And again, they actually make it look pretty convincing. They 2-0 beat them, then they overcome EG, and again, that background storyline between Fly and No Tail makes it just look immaculate. And speaking of immaculate, they somehow take down, and again, in a best of 3, they take down LGD, coming back on map 3 after a crazy gold lead. And it was Anna who actually really led this team and definitely deserves the MVP, which he was awarded by Red Bull. I'm not sure if it was an official MVP award out there, but led this team in a comeback game 3 against LGD to beat them once, and yet again, in a best of 5 in the finals, they overcome the absolute incredible. I think probably, if not the best, one of the craziest TIs I've ever watched myself personally. One of the best grand finals, one of the best semifinals, and again, LGD looking pretty dominant throughout the whole thing as well. They've convincingly beat Liquid and Virtus Pro, and alongside that, EG themselves. So looking very good, and again, a great grand final guy. I really cannot feel better for anyone out there besides No Tail. I hope the next TI can compete with this. And again, we're gonna have other discussions. Of course, now we enter the period where we're gonna see probably a lot of roster changes, a lot of immediate kicks and changes coming to rosters, which is kind of a sad period to see, but it's going to happen every single year from here on out. It's going to be cool to see as well how Valve can somehow break 25 million again, because this year they put it all out there. We had Gaben himself make a voice pack for Dota, which he's never done before, and that's really what it took to really push it past that limit. So again, guys, some crazy Dota 2 news. I cannot be happier for OG. They are your TI8 Grand Final champions. And also for Fortnite news, guys, of course, we had our 5.3 update last week of Portable Rifts, some other small changes as well with the auto adjust. Now you can pick up meds and pots to the right side of your inventory. No big updates hopefully coming this week, but we actually, of course, had Skirmish Series Week 7 last weekend. A pretty cool series as well as this week. If you guys do not remember, Week 8 is going to be at PAX West. So for all your favorite streamers and YouTubers who are going to be traveling there, best of luck. It should be a great Week 8 and also a $1.5 million prize pool. On top of that, though, we saw some pretty big surprises. It was actually Kinstar and JB taking the entire weekend here, just about $70,000 in winnings between those two, taking a first and a second place. So that was very cool to see. Alongside that, we had no surprise, Chaps back in it as always, alongside Thieves. I believe they took a first place and a fourth place and won around $57,000 themselves. And all in all, as well as we saw day 2, some names we guys actually know. We had Ninja and Dr. Lupo taking second place. Alongside that, Vivid, another victory. I think that's his 3rd or 4th victory, whether they're duos or singles throughout the 7 weeks so far. He's definitely expressed himself as a pretty dominant challenger throughout the Skirmish Series. And alongside that, NRG Zate was up there. We also saw DMO and Richard up there again. A great weekend again for Skirmish Series, but I cannot wait for this week, which will be officially our last week of Skirmish Series. Week 8 at PAX West for $1.5 million. And I'd say all in all, in terms of viewership-wise, we've seen some crazy numbers so far for Fortnite. The overall question is, though, with such an immense amount of prize pool money going out, $8 million in total, was the viewership still worth it? Is Fortnite actually making money off this series, and will it continue in the future? Will they come out with other Pro League series out there in the future? Definitely the big question going forward for Fortnite, but still, Skirmish Series wraps up this week. Who do you have winning? All right, I can see the comments now, guys. Entering the League of Legends segment, of course, we have NA and EU LCS playoffs going on. And if you guys did watch our last video, I made sure to make some predictions for the playoffs. And I didn't do too well, but I did clarify there were a lot of close matchups. And of course, this is the quarterfinals, probably going to be our closest matchups we do see. So I do want to apologize. Of the 4 quarterfinal matchups, I got one right. We went 1-3, but I do want to explain myself. So of course, if you guys did watch, I did say the one matchup that was going to probably be the easiest was 100 Thieves versus FlyQuest, and they did 3-0 them over there, so we got that pick right. But then we saw different Misfits. I actually questioned Misfits going in because of course they had that 5th player problem. Their assistant coach Jez is between Mickey X or Mickix, you know, no one really knows how to pronounce that by now, and I really thought those struggles would come into play. But we saw probably our first half of the split Misfits here approach G2, and they really demoralized them right off the bat from game 1, a dominating game 1, and they 3-0 G2. So I'm not really sure what G2 we saw there this weekend, but that was definitely, in my own opinion, the biggest surprise of any of the series. Alongside that, though, our next 2 series were very close, and they were expected to be very close. We had Splice and Schalke go to game 5. Schalke taking it after all. I did take Splice in that series just due to back half. We had Schalke losing to Rockhat. We had Schalke losing to H2K. I figured they were the weaker team going into that. It did go to game 5, but Schalke definitely earned their semifinal matchup. It's cool to see who actually wins between Schalke and Vitality. That'll be another close series, I really do think, especially Schalke coming off such a morale high over there. On top of that, we had our very last series, probably our closest one. It was Echo Fox and TSM. I did take Echo Fox, and again, I saw them over the second half of the split probably not be your most consistent team, but over the entire split, I definitely thought was a better team than TSM. I thought TSM coming off a 2-0 kind of high there was maybe getting lucky because they had to get that 2-0 victory that last weekend to actually make playoffs. But again, TSM proved me wrong here. It also went game 5, and unfortunately enough for Echo Fox, just a late game could not do it for them. TSM, of course, notably going late game and doing very well in that. They take it to game 5 and they take the series, guys. TSM will face off against in the semifinals as well. So unfortunately enough, we go 1-3, but I promise you guys this weekend I will try to do better than 1-3 and hopefully a 2-2, maybe a 3-1. Maybe I'll get them all right. But this week in playoffs, guys, is still a bit away. We also need to discuss on Wednesday 8.17 patch notes, which will go live in time for Worlds, I do believe. But yeah, that's it for League of Legends. And also in very big Overwatch news out there, if you guys did actually hear about this, apparently, of course, if you guys are aware of the CSGO scene, we actually have CSGO cases and crates and capsule bans in Belgium and the Netherlands. It was actually gone active just about last month, and it seems that Blizzard has now followed these rules in Belgium. For all you Belgium Overwatch players, unfortunately enough, you can no longer open in-game loot crates or boxes as well, as they are following those demands of the Belgian government. So going forward, guys, it seems that Belgium, Netherlands, all these countries who are apparently going to follow suit in the future are really cracking down on in-game loot crates and loot boxes and any of those systems out there, especially those who have some pretty bad odds when it comes to, of course, spending money for in-game items. So what do you guys think about this? Definitely something that's going to affect future video games, as well as obviously the big existing ones as well. CSGO and now Overwatch have been affected. What is next on the plate for these governments out there? But also, of course, on top of that, more importantly, and I guess some happier news, we did have All-Star Weekend between the Atlantic and Pacific, and we had some very fun games. First off on screen, we actually had Sure4 taking the Widowmaker 1v1 tournament. In the grand finals, it was actually over Carpe. That was a very fun event to watch. Alongside that, we also had Lucio Ball and Mystery Heroes. There were actually 4 different game modes, so Lucio Ball and Mystery Heroes both went to the Atlantic. Alongside that, we had a talent takedown. That was a very fun one to watch. So for all you guys who like your analysts and commentators playing, it was talent takedown as well as the lockout game modes going to Pacific. And very lastly, in the most notable matchup, guys, the actual all-star matchup did go to the Atlantic. So congratulations to over half of the New York Excelsior team over there as they take the victory for the Atlantic. I think overall the weekend was a very fun event, very cool to see as well, and I guess you guys can look forward to this weekend as well. We have Overwatch World Cup qualifiers still going on for the Los Angeles category over there, so it's gonna be cool to see how that does go down. All-Star Weekend though was very fun. And very lastly, in Rocket League news, of course, we had the Universal Season 2 Open going on this weekend. It was actually hosted inside NBC Studios, as well as that broadcasted both live on Twitch and YouTube. I do quickly want to talk about something. I guess we'll talk about that at the very end. We actually had no surprise here. Cloud9 taking it again after, of course, summer rivals. They took that small series last weekend. They are coming off victory after victory and looking very strong doing so, although there were very close matches. If you guys got the chance to watch, again, it was very, very cool to watch. It was actually Cloud9 taking down G2 in a close 3-2 matchup. They also take down Reezy and Scrub one time 3-2, and then they rematch the ladies again in the finals. And yes, I say ladies because they changed their name to girls at very last second. But again, in a best of 7, it was Cloud9 over the girls and a 4-3 matchup. So very, very fun to watch. A very close series overall, but Cloud9 definitely coming off some highs here, guys, and looking very strong. It was sad to see, though. Of course, I talk about this for the 3rd time now during the episode of the Jacksonville shooting, which did go on. Unfortunately enough, that was actually during this event. We actually had Remco tweet out some things about this, the chats in both the Twitch and, of course, the YouTube live streams, making light of the situation, which is just sad to see. And if you guys have watched my personal channel or have seen CSGO stuff on this so far, not only with the Jacksonville shooting, but also with the McSkillet situation, it seems that the community overall online has taken several jokes and jabs at those situations. So again, for the last time, my prayers go out to everyone involved. And I guess we can round out today's episode as well, finally talking about the McSkillet situation. His family actually has made a post. I'll show you guys on screen as well. They thank everyone for their respect and their condolences for everyone in the situation, obviously as well for the families and the victims of that situation. So overall, a pretty crappy weekend, not gonna lie to you guys. It was a pretty sad weekend, some terrible events happening in esports, and this is now the time where we have to keep the strongest, because there are several news outlets out there, especially after the Madden shooting, talking about how esports events are kind of a cultivation for these shootings, which is certainly, in my own opinion, not true, but this definitely calls for better security and better, I guess, conditions surrounding these events in the future. This definitely is an eye-opening weekend, guys. So that's going to do it for today's episode. We will see you all back here Wednesday, hopefully with some lighter and happier news. We hope you guys all enjoy. As always, my name is Jake, and I'll see you then.